So for sewing the back together, just grab kind of like a neutral colored yarn. I'm going to use white. And organize your panels so that they look nice. I prefer not to have like the colors together, so like this blue watermelon square, right, I put it next to this like pink one, so stuff like that. And how I sew it on, I'm going to kind of just focus on like one square and then the squares to like the left and right of it. So like I would start sewing like down here and then turn that way. So that way those three squares are sewed together. Then when I put the mushroom on, right, I'd start here and then sew like that and so on, right? So that way I'm always kind of like getting two sides done at once. So when I sew it on, when you're sewing these two sides together, right, you're kind of having like a double crochet and a double crochet next to each other. So I would say you should have like 2 stitches for each double crochet. And I'm gonna start, this is started with a chain 3. So I guess I could flip it. Yeah, I'll flip it upside down because this is, so when you're sewing 2 pieces together, I prefer to have them like kind of facing down. This one I guess I sewed the strawberry on upside down, but that's fine. And you're just going to pick a spot. I'm going to pick the last stitch from the last row. I'm going to pull my yarn through. And it's very similar to how we sewed before, where you're going up one way, then down into the other. So I'm just going to find the chain 3 there. So I think just right here is good. I'm going to go down. And it doesn't have to be perfect. My stitches are definitely not perfect, but it's okay. And you're just going to kind of do this all the way around. But you're going to tie them all together first. That way it's sturdy. And you're just going to continue. So I just went down into purple. Now I'll come up from the pink one. And I just kind of pick like a little random spot. I think this is kind of like between a crochet. And if it ever like you don't like how it looks or something, you can always like undo the stitch and redo it. Because sometimes like I notice that my stitches are like super big or like they're spaced weirdly, and you can just always kind of like undo it. So yeah, I went down into purple. Now I will come up to the pink. And one way to make sure you're doing it evenly is you can kind of see when a row of double crochet ends. So just make sure those are lined up and you should be fine. So this row of double crochet ends here, so I'm gonna line those up together. So yeah, go ahead and sew these down. And then when you sew the tops and bottoms together, it's actually easier, because as you can see, they both have those very visible stitches. And for those, you can just match them 1 to 1. So yeah, now you can just go ahead and sew everything together until you finish sewing both panels. Okay, so once you finish making the panels and sewing them all together, what you're going to do, you're then going to sew the panels together. So you're going to sew the left side, the bottom, and the right side. Just make sure that all the panels are facing upward. And you're going to use that same method we did before, where we're just kind of like going up and then down and up and down, so that you have these little like horizontal stitches all around. And after you get all the stitches done, we'll go ahead and make some handles. So I'm going to have 2 handles, like one over here and one over here, like a little tote bag. So yeah. What happens when we kind of have to sew this edge? Because this edge has these nice seams, this edge does not, and that makes it a little bit trickier, but not too bad, because as you can see, you'll have a larger loop and a little smaller loop, and this kind of counts as a stitch. So every time you have a big loop, you have a small loop with it, and you want to make sure when you're sewing you get both those loops in. So for this one, they're both like that, and you're gonna start from that very first chain 3, which for me is this one. This is the second one, and the third one is where we started off with our second row. So I'm just going to stick my needle through those 2 loops and pull through. And then on this one, it's a little hard to see, but it's going to end right there, I believe. Sorry, right here. That's 1 loop, and that's the second loop of the chain 3. Right, so this is the third one, that's the second one, and then the first one. And then for the other one, if you look at the top corner, there should be chain 3 there, or one of these things. But from the chain 3, this is the one where we started our new row. This is the second one, and this is the third one. So I'm going to get both loops of that third one, and pull through. Went the wrong way. And so for this one, in the corner, there should be that chain 3. And this chain is kind of like when we started the second row. This is the second chain, and then this is the very first chain we did. So I'm going to go down into that very first chain. And then tie a knot. And then I'm going to go up from the pink one again. And I see this big loop here, and this is the smaller one. It's a little hard to see, but you will get used to it. I'm going to go under both of them. I'm going to pull up, and then I'll look at this one. I'm going to put it, I think this is a small loop, that's the big loop. I'm going to put it right above them. And so that's kind of how you do it, and you're just going to match them 1 to 1. So that's another little chain. And then, so is this. I guess this is the bigger loop, that's the smaller one. And you'll get more used to it as you go along. But yeah, just go ahead, sew all your squares together, tie them off, and you'll be done. Alright, and I just wanted to show you how I tie it off. I tie it off like how we tied off the watermelon seeds. And by that I mean when you're done sewing, you just go under a stitch. And then put that needle through the loop, and that'll make a little knot. And then for extra security, you can tie another little knot. Then you can take your needle and just weave some of it under so that it doesn't stick out. To make the straps, I'm going to have 2 of them. You don't really have to leave this too long because when we sew the handles on, if we use brown, like the brown will show. So I prefer to use the same color of the background to sew it on. So just make a chain of 5. Skip this first one, go into the second one with a single crochet, and do single crochets all the way. And so this is the width of the strap, and you're going to go as long as you want to make how high it is. I would say maybe like 60 or 70 rows. I'll let you know what I do. But yeah, so you do a row, turn your work, and I don't do the chain 1 again. I just do a single crochet, and it makes it look pretty straight. So yeah. Just go ahead and make 2 straps of equal length. And also, you might want to make them a little longer than expected because to make it secure, I like to keep quite a bit of it sewn on, just to make it stronger. If I keep it like this, it's, this little stitch won't be very strong. So I like to stitch like the whole thing on there. Okay, so I finished making the strap. I'm going to sew it on now. So I'm using green yarn for this green background. And I'm also making sure the space here is 4 stitches. So that way I know to do the same on the other side, so that it's all even. But you can do, whatever you think is good. So I'm going to stick my hook from the back, and I'm going to make it go around 3 rows in. So that way it has a little bit of like sturdiness to it. So that should be row 3 right there. And then I'm just going to stick my hook from the inside and then come out. And leave a little tail. Then I'm going to go back in, go out. And since my strap is around 4 single crochets wide, it should take around 4 rows. I have to scrunch it in a bit. But yeah. Put the other 2 in. And last one. And you can sew it over a couple times just to make sure it's really secure. So I'm going to go in one more time and just make sure everything's nice and secure. And then the rest of it is a little more free-handed. So now wherever there's like green overlapping with this brown, I'm going to use my green yarn to just kind of sew it in. So I'm going to start going a little more below and kind of get like the next row sewed in. And once you get to a spot where your little symbol is showing, you can go ahead and change to a different color. So like I would change to red or maybe like white or something. And then I would begin sewing my strap on there. Just as a reminder, when you're sewing your straps on, when you get one side on, it's like, it's whatever. But once you get the other side on, you want to make sure it's orientated correctly. You don't want it to be like twisted, so this would be correct, right? But if I did another twist, then it would look weird and I have to, take it apart and do it again. So just make sure to be careful with that. I'll go ahead and go back and do this row one more time. But yeah, so that's kind of how you just put your straps on. And again, once you're done, you can just tie the start and ending threads together to end it. So yeah.